So yeah, welcome back again. Tuesday, this is my nutrition session with a cooking demo. I'm Renee Chan. I'm a dietitian in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So today's topic is all about sodium and some ideas on how to lower sodium, and I'm going to also be sharing with you two recipes later from my kitchen, and we'll be cooking together too. So I did prepare some slides, and we're going to be talking about some information that I believe that is important and relevant to many people. So bear with me here while I open it. Great. Yes, and as I said, I have some slides here, and we'll go over some sodium information. As a registered dietitian, I definitely am very keen on talking about this topic, and you can always email me afterwards if you have more questions at info@truenosh.com, or go to our website at truenosh.com to find recipes or to contact us anytime. All right. So why is this important? Well, it is important because many people are sensitive to sodium. So too much salt can increase that amount of sodium in your blood, meaning in your arteries, and it can raise blood pressure. And hence, this raising your blood pressure can increase the risk of getting heart disease and eventually cause stroke. These three illnesses are very, very adamant in our world today, and we should be taking precautions to try to prevent these from happening to yourselves and to your loved ones. So what is sodium? Well, it is often correlated with the word salt because there is no salt without sodium. So sodium chloride is the technical chemical term for salt. And sodium is a necessary nutrient, and it is one of your body's electrolytes. So it is something that is flowing in your blood as well as the fluids surrounding your cells. To keep this in balance, sorry, excuse me, apologies. I let you know what helps control the sodium is our kidneys, and it helps with fluid balance, as well as also helps with amount that you need to be kept in your body, as well as adjusting the amount that you're going to sweat when you're doing exercise. Another form of function that sodium acts in your body helps with nerve function as well as muscle function, because it is a positive element. It helps with those types of communications in your nerve and muscles. So salt is widely used mainly in food processing and manufacturing. So think about packaged food items like crackers, chips, and sausages and hams. Those are processed and manufactured food that usually have a large amount of sodium and salt in it. And it is estimated and accounted that 75% of sodium is consumed because people are eating a lot of processed foods and manufactured foods that you can buy easily nowadays in the grocery stores. So how much sodium do you actually need? And it is quite small. So you only need 186 milligrams a day. That's not even like 1% of 1 teaspoon of salt. So in 1 teaspoon of salt, it is about 2,300 milligrams or 2.5 grams. And that is more like the upper limit of sodium that you should eat in a day. And we have been shown to eat over 1 teaspoon of salt a day, which can be something that will affect our blood pressure and ultimately cause increase in your risk of heart disease. So where can you find foods with high sodium content? Well, usually, as I said before, in processed foods. So what is the umbrella of processed foods. So here we have listed a few items that are important for you to be mindful of when you go out and eat and buy foods. Fast foods have been known to be high in sodium, also prepared meals that you can find in the grocery stores that are packaged, as well as processed meats like hot dogs, lunch meats, hams, deli meats. Those are also known to have a lot of sodium because it is preserved and they can last a little bit longer in your fridge without going bad. Some soups nowadays have had a lot of variety with reduced sodium. So you would go and look at the labels to make sure that they have the word reduced sodium in there. And if they don't, that means they do have quite a lot of salt in it. Some dressings, sauces, and condiments. Also, you need to be more mindful of reading the labels, making sure that it is not too high in sodium. And when you're buying snacks, so a lot of us love to snack, potato chips and crackers, those are things that you want to make sure that you look at the label to see how much sodium content there is. Okay. And I am quoting the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and their purpose is to have, people who follow their mission is to live life to your fullest, and you don't want to miss it. And trying to eat healthy and lower your sodium intake can elongate that lifespan. Okay. So what are the steps you can take? Well, one thing that I do is I cook at home a lot, and I definitely tell people that it is not as hard and time consuming as you think it is. As well as reading and checking the food label to look at the salt content of the label. So that would be the sodium line. I will have a picture later with the nutrition facts table. I'm going to show you where to look for that. And choosing something that have a low percentage daily value. So at the very, very right hand corner, there is the daily value column, and you will want to choose foods that have less than 15% of daily value for sodium. And if it is a meal and an entree item, you would want to go to check that to be lower than 30% of the recommended daily value. So what I'm talking about here is when you're looking at the nutrition facts table, so you can see that it is a table that have a lot of columns and rows. The sodium level is usually in the middle of the label, and it'll say daily value and percentage of it, right? So this particular item has 7%, which is a better option than some other food item that has something that's higher than that. And if it says above 15%, then you would want to reconsider buying this item, okay? So when you shop, look for items that have the word low sodium, reduced sodium, or no salt added. Those are products that have been reduced in sodium, and you can check also the facts table that we've talked about in the last slide. The percentage shouldn't be over 15%. So buying fresh fruits and vegetables, those have a higher nutrition content, and usually when they're in the height of the season of their growth, they're usually a lot cheaper, so might as well stock up on it, and then you can also freeze them for later on. Reducing amount of salt while you're cooking is also one thing that you can do. And what I've done is I've added some seasonings, which I will do later in my cooking demo section, into my salt, and also herbs too. So you can buy things like parsley or thyme or rosemary. Those are really flavorful herbs that you can add into your salt to decrease the amount that you're going to be scooping out while you're cooking. And you can just add it into your salt and store it in the same container, and it should last you for a long time because all those things are dried. And another point when you're eating out or getting takeout, the nutrition information on menu items, some larger chains have those posted on their website, or while you're at the store browsing, you can take a look. and try to select items that have more vegetables and fruit and have less seasonings like sauces. Okay. So this is about serving sizes. It's a little bit small, but you can always enlarge your screen when you get a chance. And I'll just go through this and you can see what is important to know. The facts table also has something called serving sizes written on the first part of the label. And for something like bread, you would normally use it to make a sandwich that makes you use 2 slices of bread. So per serving size on the label, it says 1 serving, which is 1 slice of bread. When you go and make your sandwich, you would want to think about it this way by doubling all the nutrition information, including the sodium. So now if there's 7%, you would now have 14%. So that's something that you should keep in mind when you're cooking. The label tells you so much information that you need to know when you're calculating the amount of sodium. And also compare foods when you're buying things. One label might have 7%, and one label might have 5%. And if it's the same thing like bread, then why not choose the one that have lower in sodium, and you can be healthier and happier buying this product and taking it home with you. Another reiteration, the daily values are also very important. It also is tells you a little if there's little or a lot of that nutrition. Crackers, as I said, has been known to have more sodium than other snack foods, so make sure that it contains about 10% of daily sodium, and if it's more, then you will want to choose another cracker. These are some other examples, like 1 cup of soup, which is 250 mils. If it's condensed, that means you need to add more water in it to dilute the sodium content. So that's something that you can also adapt at home. If you buy soup at home and you forgot to look at the sodium content and it says that there's 20 to 27%, then you can add some water to it to dilute it, and then you'll double the amount of soup and half the amount of sodium. And as I said before, if it's a prepared entree, it should contain less than 30% of your daily value. Okay, those who are should be more concerned with sodium are people who have been diagnosed with high blood pressure. This is like kind of been said as a silent killer, because you can't feel that you have high blood pressure. You can only be tested either at the pharmacy when they have that machine that you can sit at and put your arm through, or at the doctor's office, and they'll tell you if you have high blood pressure or not. So you can constantly go and check this when you go to your doctor's office and ask them to tell you what your blood pressure is, and they'll know exactly if it's too high or too low, and they will recommend what you should do if it's too high. And what else? So other people who are at a high risk of is those who have some kidney issues, because as I said earlier on, your kidneys deal with the amount of sodium in your blood. And if you have a family history with kidney problems, then you should start reducing your sodium at a younger age to prevent any kidney disease from acting too early in your life. Okay? And comparing the amount of daily value in each product is also important, just like comparing other things in the nutrition table. Like trans fat or saturated fat is also an important thing to keep in mind. In that label, next to it or above it or under it, usually will tell you what ingredients it has. And the first ingredient is usually the most amount inside that product. So if it says, if it's in bread, usually it'll say like flour, and then it'll say maybe water and sugar and salt. So flour usually takes up most of the ingredients in that piece of bread. And then the lower the amount, or the lower the item is in that ingredient list, the less there is in the ingredient package. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. So you wouldn't want to buy something with that lists salt as maybe the second ingredient, because you know that there's a lot of salt in that ingredient. So the lower it is in that chain of list, then it's that you know has less salt in it. There are other forms that salt appears in your food, and you would want to look at the ingredient list for the word sodium. And these are listed like sodium chloride, sodium monochloride, sodium nitrate, sodium bicarbonate, and even soy sauce also is a source of sodium. So you want to basically see that soy sauce is relatively closer to the end of the ingredient list. So claims also, so something that has claims that it is reduced in sodium might not be exactly low in sodium. It just means that it's reduced from the regular package, and you would always want to look back at the nutrition label to see the daily value percentage, and that's when you can judge if that item is good for you or not. Low sodium also doesn't mean it's healthier, because it could have high fats, high sugar, and other undesirable ingredients in it too. So if you're looking at the back for the label of sodium, might as well take a look at the other ingredients and other nutrition in the label. So some tips. We can, well, I'm going to show you how to rinse off some canned beets later. So rinsing canned vegetables can rinse off the sodium, and sometimes even reduce your sodium by half of what it is on the nutrition table. So don't hesitate in running your canned vegetables under water for a few minutes. Another way is to increase the amount of fruits and vegetables in your dish, and that's what we're going to do later by doing a really easy stir fry. And using more vegetables can also make your foods more palatable, more flavorful. So you don't need to add too many salts or sauces to increase the taste of your food. Some things that you should look at after visiting us here today is looking at the DASH eating plan, and then also some recipe ideas you can look up at the Heart and Stroke website. And those websites are listed here, heartandstroke.ca. You can also go to the Health Canada website, canada.ca /English/Health Canada/services. Those have a lot of information to teach you about how to decrease your sodium intake, cooking at home as well as eating out. And some other information, you can also go to healthline.com. And you know, there's always things to learn when you go and visit these organizations' websites to just get more ideas. So that's my presentation, and we're going to come back and come to my kitchen, and we can do a little bit of cooking. So those of you who joined us last week should probably remember this kitchen well. I'm going to be cooking and demonstrating at the same time. So hopefully you guys can hear me. If you don't, please shout and I will try to project a little bit more. Okay. All right. So this is a quick demo on how to make a quick and easy barbecue sauce. So as I said in the presentation, sauces have a lot of sodium in it. And what I'm doing today is I'm going to show you how to make a really quick and easy barbecue sauce out of some canned beets and onions. What I'm going to do is to show you what I do with drained canned beets. Okay, I'm going to use a colander like this if you have one. If not, you can just take out the beets and put it in a bowl and run it under water for about 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to take about half a cup of beets, and I'm going to go ahead to my faucet over there and start rinsing these guys out. And you don't need to do it too quickly or for too long. When you know it's ready, the water will drain clear and you'll just be left with the beets. So I have about half a cup of beets here. If you want to buy fresh beets, definitely go ahead. Those are way better. But we're in very interesting times, so sometimes fresh products are not easy to find. So if you don't have beets, you can go ahead and use canned tomatoes also, and other items that you can find, or maybe even like canned fruits. And those have relatively high sugar content, so you would also want to rinse that out. All right, so I like beets because it makes a really nice color for my barbecue sauce, so I don't need to add any additional coloring. And to that half a cup of beets, I'm going to cut in about half a cup of onions. So this 1-to-1 beets to onions. I'm going to peel that quickly. The key to cutting onions is to do it quickly so you don't cry when you're cooking. Okay, so you just have to rough chop this guy. I'm putting it in a blender. If you guys have a magic bullet, you can use that, or a food processor, you can use that. I'm just rough chopping my onions, so I'm going to be a little bit rougher. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so half a cup of onion, half a cup of beets, and a few seasonings that I'm going to show you. Last week we talked about nutritional yeast. I'm going to come up closer to the camera and show you what it looks like. These are flakes, and they have a lot of vitamin B12 in it, and it doesn't have too much sodium. So we're also going to add some nutritional yeast to our barbecue sauce. And I chose barbecue sauce today because we are coming into barbecue season, so you don't have to spend money and buy it at home. I mean, buy it in the store if you can make it at home. And this keeps for a long time in your fridge without worrying, because we're adding a lot of spices into here. What I have here is some paprika. And if you don't have paprika, you don't have to go crazy about finding it. You can just put some chili powder if you want. More spicy flavorings, then you would go and add some chili powder, or you can add some cayenne pepper, and that's really, really spicy. So I've added about half a teaspoon of that in here. And then I'm going to go and catch my garlic powder, all right? So this is a sprinkler, but I want to add also half a tablespoon of garlic powder into my mix. And then I have some water here. I'm going to add 1 cup of water into my mixture. And then one more thing that I forgot to get is some apple cider vinegar. I'll be right back. All right, so it doesn't have to be apple cider vinegar. You can use white wine vinegar, you can use white vinegar, whatever type of vinegar you use. you can just add it into your sauce. So I will add about 2 tablespoons of this vinegar into my cup. And if you have a blender, you can just blend the whole thing now, or you can throw it, use your handheld blender and start blending it into the container like mine. I love the handheld blender, so. Okay, and here you go. This is a nice freshly made barbecue sauce that you can use to brush onto any thing that you're barbecuing at home, and you can store this in a closed container for about 2 to 3 weeks, or you can use this to marinate any type of meats or tofu or protein and then put it in the freezer, and when you're ready to cook it, you can just stick it in the oven or on top of the grill after you thaw it out. Okay? Are there any questions from anybody? Okay, and also remember, whenever you're making a sauce, have a taste and make sure it's yummy before you store it away. So this sauce is going to thicken up a little bit after you store it in the fridge, but don't worry, you can just add maybe a teaspoon of water and stir it back up and it should be good to go. Okay? All right, that's our first recipe, and our second recipe is a quick stir fry that you can do at home. A lot of times soy sauce is not low in sodium. This one I have here, you can easily find at a grocery store. What I do though, I do add some water to dilute it, so I'm now reducing half the amount of sodium in my sauce. And then I'm gonna go and in my pantry to look at spices like garlic, nutritional yeast, and some paprika to add more flavor without adding too much sodium. What I have here to demonstrate a quick stir fry is some carrots. So I'm just gonna chop the carrots. I like to keep the skin on my carrots. So what I've done before I started this session is I just washed it really well and scrubbed any part of the skin that I see have any soil or dirt on it, make sure that that came off. And the skin I keep because there's a lot more antioxidants on the skin than inside of the carrot. So that's something that you can do when you buy conventional products, is to scrub it well, or just soak all your vegetables in a gallon of water with some baking soda. Also can wash some of the pesticides off. So I'm just cutting my carrots into slices. You can do whatever you want. You can cut them into cubes. Slices, I feel, have a better mouthfeel when you're sauteing or stir frying. And in your stir fry, you can go ahead and add some noodles, and I actually like to add some whole wheat pasta to it, but for that you would want to have half the amount of that you would usually and double amount of vegetables. So I have a little bit of onions that I'm going to cut into slices also in the stir fry. Caramelizing onions can give a lot of flavor to your stir fries, so don't hesitate in doing that. So I'm just kind of cut about half a cup of onions that have been sitting here that I used for my barbecue sauce. And then I have some cabbage here. So what I want to do with the cabbage, I'm just going to cut this guy into shreds. This I can use like noodles in my stir fry, right? So if you cut little strips of it, you won't need to add as much noodles or rice because this will, you know, be the bulk of your stir fry, right? Always curl your fingers in when you're cutting so you don't cut your fingertips. Cabbage and carrots are great for stir fry. So if I cut strips, they you know, become a little loose like this, and you can use them like noodles. Instead, they're actually vegetables. Okay, and then also to add some protein, I've got some firm tofu here. And you can add whatever meats you want if you don't like tofu. Firm tofu is the best way to stir fry with, because if you're going to use any type of smooth tofu, it's just going to turn mushy when you're stir frying. Okay, so I'm cutting these into strips also. And with the vegetables, if you don't like carrots, you can substitute it with celery, you can substitute it with parsnips. You can also do kohlrabi if you want to go and find out what that is. I'm pretty sure they're coming to season. You can use other root vegetables like beets also, and you can also just substitute it with bok choy even, or napa cabbage. Nobody's going to like the same things that I like. I mean, so I can't make everybody happy, but these are the sort of staples that I have at home that you can buy readily, and you can store them for a while, at least 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge without worrying that it's going to go bad. All right, so these are the 4 ingredients. I have a pan over here that I'm going to turn on. Let's see. Go. All right, and I'm using a little bit of grapeseed oil just for the pan. If you have a well-seasoned pan, cast iron pan, go ahead and use it. If not, a wok is fine, or even just a stock pot that you can saute things in, that's perfectly fine. So for the sauce, I'm going to use just a regular soy sauce, but I have some water here to dilute your soy sauce. I also make a line of low sodium gluten-free sauces, and I can use some of my hoisin sauce into it if you want, but a regular soy sauce is fine. And if you like, our just freshly made barbecue sauce goes pretty well as a stir-fry sauce also. So you can add about 2 tablespoons of that into your sauce with some water and some soy sauce and a little bit of cooking oil. So for this stir-fry, it's going to be stir-fried at a little bit higher temperature. I won't use something like an olive oil that can change properties if it's cooked at too high of a temperature. So I would go with something like avocado oil, grapeseed oil, sunflower oil, coconut oil. Those are known to be able to withstand higher temperatures and won't change their chemical structures if you stir fry. Okay, so your pan is hot. What you want to do is throw in your onions first, and you can hear a nice sizzle. I'm going to get a spatula, let's see, or a wooden spoon, that works just well. And you're just going to saute this in your pan. You're going to let the onion turn translucent before adding the other ingredients. Can you guys see okay? I'm going to pick up the pan and bring it closer to you. once the onions have turned translucent. And I will show you what that means. Okay, so I'm going to grab you guys and I'm going to bring you closer to my frying pan, and you'll see that the onions are still a little opaque, but they've definitely turned a little glossy and you can almost see through them. And this, you need about another 30 seconds for it to cook through, and then you can toss in all the rest of the ingredients. Smells really good. I'm going to add the carrots first. Let it cook for about 30 seconds. You don't want the carrots to be too mushy because it is a stir fry, so you just want to par cook it. And then the tofu goes in. The tofu will add some moisture and protein into your stir fry. All right, so after the tofu goes in, just let it sit for a little bit. I'm going to measure out, maybe this is about a quarter cup of water to about, you can get a teaspoon. And this is a way that you can dilute your soy sauce by adding water to it. So I have 2 teaspoons of soy sauce that I diluted in water, and it still looks brown, so don't worry, it's going to give a nice flavor to your stir fry. All right, and then at the end, I'm gonna add in the rest of the cabbage. I'm going to let it cook. And the idea is to add the sauce at the end so it doesn't have too much time to be absorbed in the vegetables, and you don't have to add extra sauce so you don't have to add too much sodium into your food. Okay. In the meantime, I'm just going to go get a plate right here. And then when you know that the cabbage is almost cooked, then you add the sauce on top. And you can turn it to a medium heat. And then with the barbecue sauce that we've just made, can add just a little sweetness. I've added about a quarter cup into it, and it'll add just enough flavor to enhance our vegetables. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat off, and this guy is ready for lunch. And that is our 2 recipes for today. I'm just gonna make sure it looks nicely plated. And I hope you guys can try something like this at home for lunch.
Looks great.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm gonna try the barbecue sauce recipe after this.
Sure. So I can reiterate the ingredients. I have half a cup of beets that have been washed and drained, and half a cup of onions. I've got a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, half a tablespoon of garlic powder, half a tablespoon of paprika, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and 1 cup of water for that barbecue sauce. Okay. And
what can you substitute if you don't have beets?
Yeah, so if you don't have beets, you can put fruits basically into it.
Okay.
I would like a pear or even some apple would be great.
That's great. I did have a couple questions actually. Does sodium impact your cholesterol?
Well, it depends, because it does both cause the high blood pressure for sodium, but then if you have existing cholesterol, that could be dangerous. So sodium doesn't directly cause cholesterol, but if you have high cholesterol and if you already know that your arteries are getting thinner, then the more sodium that you eat can be harmful for the arteries, because that now that the pressure of your blood going through your arteries have gone higher, then it could cause the cholesterol that's stuck in your arteries to kind of dislodge and travel, and then could clog your other parts of your smaller arteries that the cholesterol can travel to, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. And then what's the difference between like just table salt and like sea salt? Like, is one better than the other for you?
Well, table salt is normally common and usually cheaper. It actually has a little bit of iodine in it. It was, I think, back in the early 1900s when iodine is known to cause be helpful for your thyroid function, and those who are eating salt without iodine have been known to have more thyroid issues. So therefore, the table salts have some sort of iodine in it to just make sure that there's enough iodine in our diet. But if you eat seafood, then you won't have to worry too much about iodine. And sea salt, yeah, also is not something that has added iodine in it too. So it'll say in the sea salt package that it is not a source of iodine because it's not fortified, and you would want to increase your intake of seafood and seaweed to make sure that you have enough iodine in your diet.